Unavailable.
Hi everybody. Today is October 8th, I think. Hold on.
News stop of 1 England on speak. Clock 6:14 p.m. Monday 10/8/20.
Yep. Today is October 8th, 2018, and I wanted to do an update on therapy. So this will just be all about therapy on Saturday. So, we had no problem getting out of the building. There was no lockdown. No one broke glass. There was no pickups or drop-offs on either end of the trip. It was amazing. We got there, and it's a really nice place. This Awakening Center. It's at the top of a really old, Victorian building, and it has nice soft furniture, nice soft carpets, classical music, and the staff are just kind of walking around, and they have a little kitchen area, and they have all these pictures and things up on the walls and quotes, and it's just a really relaxing place to be. It's just so peaceful. I mean, you're just going there and you're like, so anyways, so I saw Megan, and we were in a different room, I think, to the room we were in last week. I think it depends on the week or depends on the, I don't know, day. I guess they all share different offices, and especially the interns just go to different places. But all the rooms are great. The furniture is so soft, and in this room we had a bunch of things I could play with in my hands. We had there was a stress ball horse. There was a stuffed animal, sloth. There was a little ball I could squish. It had holes in it. It was a ball shaped thing, but there was no ball. It was just it was just air. It wasn't it all had holes in it. It was like a wiffle ball or something, but it was made out of rubber. And so there was that, and she had all these different little sprays that smelled good. She had lavender essential oils, and so it was a really, really good, and then she had a thing of rocks. So it was a really good area to sit. And so I sat and I talked to her, and at first she was she said, well, I want to talk to you more about your past and what's brought you to this point and everything. And I'm kind of well, I've kind of done that for a lot of years, and I really, want to just talk about what's been going on, because there's been so much going on since I saw you, and so I told her about everything, and I said, I've been working with this shaman, minister, friend of mine, and she believes that I'm an empath, have psychic abilities, and that this is a huge part of what's been going on with me, mentally, and what it looks like, mentally, and even physically with my body and things like that, is all to do with energy, and that I'm feeling things so strongly, and there's so much stuck in my body that everything just goes nuts. And me tapping into these things, I think probably is just setting everything else off the mark, and that's probably why I would have problems with speaking and my perceptions of sound and my perceptions of touch and things like that, was when I was getting all this other extra information on another level. And that's kind of, it all probably just crossed wires, and I believe that. And, in terms of what we were looking at, in terms of, that she believes that it is a ghost, a paranormal, some kind of being that is, interfering with me, that's made so much more sense, as I've said before, than anything, any I've heard about any of this else, because the multiplicity, and especially having a dissociative disorder in the disorder sense, never clicked with me. And from the beginning that I read, I read the book that she wrote. I knew she did, ghost stuff for years, and so I read the book, and there's a chapter about a haunted person, and it's just they attract, these spirits come to someone because they know that they're so afraid, and that's how they get, your energy, is because you're afraid, and they just suck it up. So when I read that, it really resonated with me. And then as we've been talking off and on, I've tried so hard in the mental health system to try to find any answers, and I didn't get any. So that's when I really started talking to her about, okay, what is this, and what do I do, and what's going on? And the more that we talked about that, the more that, as I was trying to do the things that she was doing, and I was doing them, the more things opened up, and that's when I started to have, the visions and more voices and just more different things coming in. But anyways, so I told her all that. And she was like, okay. She listened. I mean, completely honestly and non-judgmentally listened. And we're just like, okay, so like, what does hearing voices mean to you? Like, what is that like? And so I told her what it's like, to hear the various voices, and everything on, they're clearly inside my head. They're not coming out of I have voices coming out of my computer because my screen reader, but like they're not coming out of an object or something, and they are negative though. Whatever this is will put say really horrible things to me in my head and send really horrible visions. So they are in a negative sense, and that's how I have to be really careful. Like who I talk to, like I wouldn't be sitting and telling other staff this, I'm amazed that she listened so well as she did, because anyone else would be like, well, she's having these experiences that are scary for her and not manageable and are out of the ordinary, and well, she's psychotic, and I don't want medication, obviously. I used to, but I don't now. But even before I had the visions, of course, we didn't know I was going to have them. It just happened. Even before then, I was, because I was working with her so much, and I was like, okay, I'm kind of getting a handle on this. So, as time went on, and I sort of had a context for what is going on. Okay, it's this ghost. Okay, it's interfering with my energy and taking it, and so I'm all like out of whack because of it. Oh, and that's happening because I'm afraid, and if I, even to just know, like, okay, this is a ghost, it's attracted to me somehow, and it's doing stuff, and it's not of me, was a huge thing. Because it's always kind of intuitively what I felt, is that this thing is not of me. It's something else coming in and doing, it's something else doing something, and I don't know what it is or why. But, so anyways, even before all that, I had a context for it that I was, growing and growing more comfortable with, and then it just started happening. This stuff. And so I told her about, that, and she listened, and she asked me, what is a vision like? And I told her what it's like for me, which is, I think I've said on here, like a picture more than anything else, like that I can see it in a sense of like, I don't know, it's not just like going around and like touching each thing. Like I could, like if I wanted to walk in, like I know where everything is like mapped out. But like blind people need to make a mental map of everything, so they know like, okay, the bed's here, like the door's there, the dresser's there, whatever. But they do it having to do have to do the route a bunch of different times over and over till they memorize it. Where if you can see, I would think you just look at the thing and you're like, okay, there's the dresser, there's the bed. I can see the whole room and I can see all the different parts at the same time. That's what a vision feels like to me. It's like, okay, I can see the forest. I know it's a forest. I know it has rocks. I know it has water. I can take all that in like a few seconds, and then I can concentrate on the various parts of it and look at each thing. That's kind of what a vision is like for me. And it's more than just I'm not making them up. I'm not creating it in my own mind. It just kind of comes into my mind. So I explained it, and she thought that totally made sense, and she was like, oh, I'm really interested in your beliefs and how this is going. And she was like, you have a complete turnaround from the other week. Like, you have been doing so much good work on yourself, and like, having so much compassion for these, parts of you, or whatever this is, which is, I was all excited because I looked up the internal family systems because I wanted to learn more about it. And it's such a self-help thing. Like, you can go to therapy for it, and like, I'm sure that's great, but like, really the therapist teaches you how to do it yourself. So like, ideally you learn about this and then like you go home and do it yourself. It's not so much like the therapist really does a whole lot, as far as I have read. So it's basically about developing this compassionate, open, curious space within you that's kind of like the parent, or like the mom, or just a compassionate person that's going to, like the therapist, or whoever, that's going to listen to, you go to this person for your problems of like, okay, me and my kids aren't getting along, and okay, the parents talk, kids talk, and parents, and the therapist, hears all the sides and says, okay, why don't we look at this a different way? Do you really, can you see it from your kid's point of view? Can you see it from your mom's point of view? What's going on? Okay, maybe you guys need to do something a little bit differently. Okay, why don't you try that and come back and tell me how it went? That's the kind of thing that you do with yourself, like on a daily basis throughout the day, is like looking at these different aspects of you. Like, say you're someone that like works really hard, like workaholic type. You can't switch off from your work when you get home, but then there's a part of you that wants to just be home with your kids and hanging out, and so you have to talk and reason between the parts of you and be like, okay, why are you still feeling like you need to do work, when you're home, and what can we do so that you don't feel so pressured to do work when you're at home? Or, the part that likes to just be at home, it's like, okay, well, is it possible that there are sometimes that you can do some work at home, so the person doesn't feel, the other part doesn't feel so pressured, so it's like making a compromise and like working with those different aspects is what I got from reading about it. So I think that's why on Friday I was able to develop such a compassionate space for these parts or beings or whatever, where somehow I was able to detach from them enough to speak to them, and not black out, and speak to them and have a two-way communication, out loud. And so I said, okay, I'll show you what I mean. And I just started talking, and they started talking. It was like, hey, okay. And then the person introduced themselves to her, like, okay, hi, it's Co. Oh, hi, Co. Everything. Also, you're a therapist too. Like, she was really nice to them. And like when Honey spoke, she was like, oh, Honey, yeah, I'm gonna be your therapist and everything, and so like I would talk, and they would talk, and I would talk, and then, it's just a conversation. It's and that is something that's true to form of multiplicity. The parts, the insiders, whatever, the alters, have to speak to each other either internally or out loud like that, and it has to be a dialogue, either spoken or written or something. There has to be some communication. So whatever else is going on, somehow we broke a bunch of barriers, and I can communicate with them now. So whatever they are, at least we have a line of communication open. I asked her about, what is the line between, a sense of a part of a person that's, whatever part of a person that's part of their personality makeup and, sense of self in that way, whether it's a traumatized child part, another part that's doing destructive things, another part that's, just hanging out, what is the line with that and a spiritual, spirit type thing, whether it's a spirit guide or a ghost or something. And they have terms for that in the internal family systems, which I was really happy about. But unfortunately, the class, the option to learn that is like a really advanced option of like, you can learn about this spiritual aspects of things, but it's an advanced, option, and it's optional. So she didn't know about it, and I wasn't that surprised. And just she wrote it down. But I really want to get her take on it. What does she think? And at the moment, she's like, I want your take on it, because the most important thing is my take on it. But it gets confusing because, I know a lot about multiplicity, at least like on an intellectual level. I've had many friends that are multiples. I've talked to many different systems and people within systems. And so I understand it as much as a, I'll just say as much as a non-multiple friend can, and so there are things that make me think it could be, that I was so detached, so dissociated, that I was blacking out, and I was losing awareness. That's a huge, big thing. That these are so separate that they can talk back and forth. That's a huge, big thing. That they have, different names and ages and talk to each other and everything else. And, sometimes they have said things that sound like they're trying to be helpful, or parts of me, because they've touched on various issues that I do have, like, worried about me expressing my emotions and not keeping things in, worried about me making friends, worried about me, I guess, not being like a kid enough and not playing enough, things like that are issues, but then after that point, it just becomes about this, well, I just want to live, I want to be in a body, and I want to live, and I just want to live, and I just want to be in the world, and I just want to live, and I just want my own family, and I just want to just do things and be alive, and all those things over and over again make Betty and probably other empaths and shamans and people that work on that level say, whoa, this sounds like someone that's not doesn't have a physical body and desperately feels like they need one, and that does not sound helpful or healthy or anything, and it seems like when they get in that stage, they'll do anything to get it. They'll do anything to have me step aside, black out, whatever, to come into my awareness and act through me, write, talk, whatever, through me, or just have the experience of living through me, being alive, and that's, and the other thing too is they don't have memories, the various who have parts do not have memories of any time before December, anything about me, anything about my life, family, whatever. It's all new to them, and they don't have any memories of each other before all this happened. So that seems a little bit strange to me. And like I said, when you get to the core of it, when I ask them, what do you want or what do you need, if all of these things that you're worried about are genuinely fixed, what do you need? It's always, well, I just want to live. I want to live. I want to, it just goes back into that circle of I need to live. And it does scare me. And it scares me because 1 minute they can be that way. They were very open on Saturday with Megan. And, they said things that they have also told everyone else. I don't know if it's because the therapist was there or because whatever. They said exactly what they've told everyone else. We care about Sam. We think that she has, she is a better, expressing a fuller sense of self by having multiple, aspects or in being multiple. She is expressing more, and we feel that this is like, a better, a more holistic way of her to function, mentally and physically, and, we're looking out for her and everything else. And it's stuff that everyone's written, they have written and told people. So they didn't say all that on Friday. They said some different things, but it was basically the same thing, that they had these different concerns. And it looks, on the surface, some of those things look okay. But then like I said, when it gets just below that, it's just this frantic effort to just be alive, and that's it. And the other thing too is, when anyone says they're a ghost, they just freak out. And I said to them, if someone said you were a cat, how would you feel? And they're like, I wouldn't care. They're like laughing. I'm like, well, then I know. So, like, why do you care so much that you're a ghost? And that's what the thing I started with on Friday that kind of was the breakthrough, I think, between me and them is like, okay, you guys know, like, deep down that you're not, at least not a whole person, that the word ghost and all that makes you really, really, scared and anxious, and you can't bear to hear it. And it touches on so much. And I believe that it's because that you aren't alive, at least in the sense that you want to be fully, and you are so afraid of that whenever you hear ghost, you freak out, and it was kind of like dead silence after that when I talked about it on Friday. And I experimented with it on Saturday. I just said, hey, Co, you're a ghost, and she freaked out, and just got all, she didn't freak out, but she got all anxious and, everything else, and they don't know what to do with that when I say it. Versus, I think if I told any other multiples, insiders, like, hey, you're a ghost, and that's triggering for people, but, because of a lot of abuse people have gone through, but just say, like, okay, I don't think other people, like, if you're a person, any sense of, like, what you consider a person, a living being, and someone says you're a ghost, like, I don't, like I said, it's like someone saying you're an animal. It's not, like you're a cat or a dog. I'm surprised that it's triggering. The fact that it's triggering all this is possibly a clue that this is something not of a personality sense nature. So I want to know what the line is, because I get really confused and scared for myself when they go from supposedly being helpful and acting in a way, genuine, and they've been genuine enough to pull in all my friends, and now I'm sort of facing them and giving them the benefit of the doubt and saying, okay, tell me what you want. And they tell me what I want, what they want, and I say, okay, I will work on that. And then the minute I kind of relax and say, okay, I'm here, you're here, I'm not fighting you. They go into this frantic thing of, we just want to be alive, and we just want you for ourselves, and you need to stay away from Betty, and you shouldn't have any other friends besides us. And I just don't think that I know that there are persecutor parts and abusive parts to a system, but this is like a whole system of them. And even Honey she does things to wear me down like a child would, and she doesn't listen, and she just, so it's just ridiculous. So, but Mary had a really good respect for everything I was saying. Mary, did I say Mary? Megan had a really good respect for everything I was saying, for everything that happened. And I asked her, I said, do people, who just come in for this internal family systems therapy have no idea about psychic stuff? That's not even what they're doing. When you do it, do they talk back and forth out loud? And she said, oh yeah, they do. I said, really? So I'm going to ask her more about that, whether she kind of encourages that kind of role-playing, like drama type thing, or if it comes from within, as in they're talking, they hear a voice or something, or have thoughts that feel like an answer and not like their own thoughts, and then they voice that. Or is it kind of like, okay, pretend that you're this person. Okay, I'm this person, if it's more sort of dramatized. But either way, I was really happy for how the session went, how she listened, and everything like that. I know that she doesn't, I don't know if anyone has the answers on what this is, and I don't know if there is a line between like the shamanic stuff and the mental, emotional, psychiatric, stuff, or if I should even worry about it, or what. But I think between the two of it, me trying to not be afraid, which is the thing that gets them going, and keeping an eye on all of that, and working on just psychic things as they happen minute to minute, and then trying to talk to them reasonably, because at least I can say I tried to talk to you reasonably. That is doing good. So we're kind of using both, but I do wonder what her supervisor will say when she says, yeah, I had this girl, and she and they do play the meetings. So, she was talking about visions, and, like, I'm kind of worried my luck is going to run out after that one meeting where she was kind of, because interns, I was an intern, you have to have, if a supervisor tells you to do something differently or consider something differently, then that affects how you are the next time you see the person. So, I don't know, but I know that she's probably the only, it was just so amazing to have someone that actually listened to these beliefs and took me seriously, and took what my friend was telling me seriously, and everything else. So I feel good about that. She was just very impressed with how well I was doing, how I was accepting my situation, accepting that I heard these things, accepting that I felt these things. And I think that's all down to Betty and her friend Lisa, but really Betty, because she and her mentor and friend Steve have grown up, as empaths and psychics, and had these abilities since they were children, and had years of all these things going on that are so scary but also so amazing. So they have been amazing with me, and so is her friend Lisa, and I wouldn't be able to be where I am without them, because it is very, very hard. It's like every day there's something that goes on. And every day it's a new thing, it feels like. Like just when I've sort of intellectually got something and it's going down towards emotionally and physically and energetically, getting it so I can actually change something, then a new thing comes up, And that just is, I can't even put it into words. It's horrible. you feel out of control. You feel like you're not going to ever get up this hill, and you feel like you're just getting up the hill and you fall down the hill again. And, I felt really, 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 really depressed today. And I talked to Betty, and I talked to an internal protector. And both those things, I think, pulled me away from, continuing down this path that wouldn't have been healthy if I kept on it. But both those things equally, and definitely hearing her, texting her, and we did talk the other night on the phone, but mostly we text, and her saying, it's okay, we've dealt with this for years, this is happening for a reason, you're meant to help people with this, and, you're going to get through this, and you are doing it, and that's what the things say too, the creatures and the different things that come to me, and they're not bad. Like a lot of those things, one of them is like I won't really talk about it, but, good creatures, animals, imaginary, quote unquote imaginary, and real, and angels, although, it's so weird because I never was spiritual at all. I never believed in God, never any of that. I just wasn't something that resonated with me at all. And now to have this going on is so weird because this huge world that I'm being thrown into, I have to trust that world of spirits and things that you can't see, because things that I can't see and no one else can see are happening to me like every minute of the day, and I have to use this other stuff that I can't see to navigate it and try to, help myself stay calm and I guess balanced and somewhat steady in this really strange world. And it's difficult, but I can say by the end of today that I feel good on different things. I got a vision of the man Steve that I was telling you about. He's a wise guy. He's a really wise man. He's a shaman. He's been through a lot, and I've seen him a few times. And over the weekend, I got a vision of him. It's clearly him. I've seen him a few times. He's written a book and he talks on the video, and I know what his voice and his whole sense of him is like. You can't mistake him for anyone else if you've met him, or maybe if you haven't. But I got a vision of him in this really peaceful, natural place with specific animals. And he loves, the nature and everything else like that. And shamans are really connected to that. Anyways, and I said, oh, this is so peaceful. And Betty's like, yeah, he's showing you how peaceful things can be once you really get this stuff. And I was like, oh, okay. It was so funny, and it was so him, just to be like, okay, just chilling out with the wolves and the bears and the eagles. And then, it just gets more weird from there. But it's been nice to have good things coming into my mind, which means that this isn't a terrible bad thing or a brain imbalance, because it's not all just bad things. And I can step away from the bad things. I'm learning how to step away from the bad things and to appreciate the good things that are huge. So yeah, it's definitely a weird road, and I can't believe that it's happened all so quickly. But yeah. So I am still curious about the line, but maybe in a few weeks that won't matter so much. I don't know. Things change every day. But that, it does, because I don't want to treat these people like bad creatures if they're not, but at the same time, I don't want to treat them like people I should have in my head if they're, creatures, spirits or beings that shouldn't be around me, because there are things that you would do to, for spirits and beings that is the opposite of what you would do for, speaking to a person that's sharing your mind and body peacefully. So, yeah. I'm just continuing to work on it. And I think a big thing for me that I learned, or that I really got from Betty, is I said, I can't be on alert on this like 24/7 to know what are they doing, what are they not doing, because they did this thing I mean, I know for the fact this one spirit is a ghost, this male spirit. So this one guy did this thing where he got in my head while I was sleeping and he started yelling at me. So I woke up and I was already afraid because he was yelling at me. And then when I went to wake up in the morning, my connection to all that whole inner world I was telling you about and my abilities to sense was just gone. So I couldn't find like the inner protectors or anything because it was just blank. And I couldn't do anything because it was just everything was off. And I was like, oh my God, what do I do? And I was like, and I think one of the things was because he was saying so strongly, this empath thing is crazy. This psychic stuff is crazy. You're making yourself worse by talking to these people. You are not an empath or psychic or anything, and you blah 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 blah. So of course that's gonna wear you down and short circuit stuff. And so I eventually came back on because I did something psychic and I didn't think it would work, but it did. And that kind of reset everything. But, I said, I can't be on alert 24/7. And I said, every minute of this is crazy. All the time it's something. And I can't be on alert for like 20 million things. And she says, you don't have to. She says, you're doing something and you hear them yelling in your head, tell them to shut up. She said, and if you're doing something and they're bothering you, do something else and then just keep going, And I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and, it does. And the whole thing that I finally established on myself last night, and this is the last thing I'll say because it's getting super long, is I always thought the thing, like I said, the ghost is a being that is, was alive in a body and can't move on to the other side, the spirit world, because they are stuck or, trapped between our world and there. And, they're literally weighed down by the emotions that they had in their life and are, that are still stuck with. Like last night I do have I have compassion for him, and I expressed compassion, but I said, he is just full of rage, but there's so much under the rage, there's so much guilt and so much shame and so much despair. And I said, those are heavy things to carry around. And I was like, I really could sense like the weight of all this stuff just like dragging him down. And she's like, yeah, that's why he's stuck. So he's stuck. And so he's feeling all these things. And then he needs to, be connected to something in order to feel alive and continue to, process these things because he doesn't know anything different. And so he finds somebody that is, in a vulnerable place, like, very afraid, very hurt, similarly, high chance, in a similar situation that he was in. And then he can kind of attach to that person and, take their energy and their sense of themselves, as, okay, I'm in control of my body, I'm in control of my mind, I'm here, I'm alive, and kind of take it to him so he can say, I'm here, I'm alive. And I thought that the process was, he came in, and just by him being there, he could just take whatever he wanted. So he could just be hanging around me and just take it, and then take it more, and there really, there were things that I could do, like try to not be afraid of him, and maybe that would stop him, and everything else like that. But that he would just be there, and that just by him being there, he would take, my energy. And, we were going through the whole sequence of that last night, and I'm very logical, and I said, oh, you mean that me being afraid is the first thing that happens before he takes my energy? She's like, yeah. I was like, oh, I thought it was backwards. I thought that, he took my energy first, and then I got really afraid and whacked out. Not just afraid, but, all these physical feelings and, just completely, completely off kilter, and just not. But I was like, I thought it was backwards. So she should know. She said, you cannot, nothing, no beings or anyone can take your energy unless you give it to them. And, but I think there's a huge but and a huge thing of there are 10 million bazillion ways that you can give someone your energy and not even know it. That's kind of what I'm, struggling with is like, okay, this is one situation where I learned how to not be afraid and I'm understanding it. Okay, another situation, wait, that's the same type of thing? Oh my God, really? So like, I have to go through like 10 million different ways that I'm like, oh, it's the same thing. But it takes like forever to figure it out. Plus I have to text her like a million times and I'm like screaming in text. But, she deals with it very well. And she says I'm doing good, and her friend Lisa says I'm doing good, and I feel like I'm doing goodish. I feel like I'm doing goodish. So it's a combination of, my work with Megan is going to be part of it, but a lot of it is at home. It's within your own self. It really is. So, we'll see what goes on, and I will be happy to answer like any questions, and I'd love to hear anyone's thoughts. If you are an empath and you deal with multiplicity, I really want to talk to you. I need to talk to you. Or if you're an empath and you've been an empath for any length of time, I'd like to talk to you. Especially if you are disabled, especially if you're blind, that would be good. And just I want to talk to other people that are going through this, that are just starting, or that are, been doing this for a while. So I'd like to make connections, but I want to be very, very careful who I talk to. Because I am really sensitive about this. I mean, not sensitive like, I'm sensitive, but like sensitive. What people say on this will really affect me. What goes into my head could turn into a vision or something, and then I'd spend, what someone tells me, how they approach me on this stuff is very, very important. So I want to be careful who I connect with on it. I need to be able to really trust that person. And they need to speak in a way I understand. There was someone on Facebook that she cares about, she loves helping people. She loves, helping people in this journey. She wants as many people as possible to be, in touch with this positive energy and light or whatever, spiritual thing. But she uses words that are just not accessible. And one of them Betty knew. And another one she's like, I have no idea what that is. And she says some people just use a lot of new age words and it gets really, really confusing. And it does, And then, of course, those words put kind of pictures in my head that are strange, So, but anyways, I do want more people to talk to because I need more people to talk to. And especially around that line of empath / mental illness / disability is something I really need. So, since I've gone on for an hour, I will talk to you later. And I will, if people want me to do like more videos on my experiences or anything, I'll probably just end up doing them whether you want it or not. But I will put content warnings to say content, psychic, empath, paranormal things, so people know that's what's going to be talked about, so you're not triggered, because I know it can be really triggering. It's scary to hear about, and especially then if you've had any kind of spiritual abuse, around any of these topics, it can be really hard. And I imagine it's a million times harder for anyone who is, who's an empath, has these abilities, whatever, but has also had really bad spiritual abuse and trauma and ritual abuse. I think that's probably a whole other level of things. And I don't want to trigger anyone. Okay, so I will talk to you later. Have a good night, everybody. Bye.
My movie. Webcam stop button.